Welcome back, everybody. Today's topic 1.2.1. What is the function? And we'll be talking about function machines. So today's learning target, distance learning target, in this case would be today I'll be able to identify mathematical relationships as evidenced by beginning to understand the input-output nature of functions. So today we're going to be focusing again on mathematical relationships. And you guys pretty much already know some mathematical relationships. So whenever we hear these words together, we're pretty much talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, or even dividing, right? So those are the different types of mathematical relationships we use, or they're pretty much operations. Another one you can think about is like the square root. You guys have done them before, right? Also exponents, that could be a relationship, right? Something raised to a power, and so forth. So let's first start off by talking about the relationship that we can establish when we're looking at a table. So examine the table of input X and output Y values below. Is there a relationship between the inputs, output values? If so, write an equation for this relationship. So again, the first thing we want to look at is see how the numbers are changing from one to the next one. So here, what do you guys think is happening for the input values? How much is it going up by, or is it going down by, right? So to establish the relationship, so if you guys see things that are increasing, right, if things are going up, so if things are increasing, most of the time the relationship could be either adding, it could be multiplying, or it can even be raising something to a power. All right, let me get that one right. And then if something is decreasing, if it's going down, then the relationship could be subtracting, right? The opposite of adding, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And then lastly, the opposite of raising something to an exponent should be taking the root of that number. All right. So here, if we notice on the first one, the inputs, right, we want to establish how much is it increasing or decreasing by. So here, we notice that it's going and going by ones. All right. Now let's look at the output. Let's see how the outputs are changing. So we go from -4 to -1. And then from -1 to +2, from 2 to 5, from 5 to 8. And as you guys can notice, we've been pretty much looking at something that's been going up by +3. Right. So again, there's a relationship between the input and the output values, right? So we would say like for every time we go up 3 on the output values, we go up 1 on the input values. All right. So if you guys notice that relationship, so write an equation for this relationship. So let's try to write an equation. So how do we get an output value? Y equals, what are we doing to the X values to get the Y values? So pretty much if a function is like, we have to do something to it, right? Like it has to go through a process. So right here, what do you guys think is happening for us to be increasing from for every X value, right? For example, if I put in 2, I get a 5. If I put in 3, I get an 8. And if you guys notice here, this has to do a lot of it, right? The +3s. So every time I look at something, for example, at 1, right? If I multiply that times 3, I get 3. And then how can I get a 2? So let's see, 3 times 1 is 3. And then to get a 2, I would have to subtract 1. And if you guys notice, that's also my figure 0, or my initial value. All right, so let's try another one. Y equals 3 times 2 minus 1. That would be 6 minus 1, which gives us 5. Try one of the big ones. See if it works. If it works, that's our rule. So y equals 3 times 5. Take away 1. So that would be 15 minus 1 equals +14. And right there it matches, right? So we can say that the equation for this would be y equals 3 times the inputs, 3 times the inputs x, and then take away 1. All right, and that concludes our lesson.